What's up, you guys? Welcome to the imagination where everything you think is real. Today's episode, I am so thrilled to bring you because I am bringing to you two powerhouse women that have been featured on previous episodes, Samantha Baldwin and Elizabeth Harding Weinstein. Ladies, how are you doing today?
I'm okay.
Given that I had an intruder stalk my friend's house yesterday and wouldn't leave and I had to flee, I mean, honestly, it's always a loaded question when you ask me, right, Emma?
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. One of the things I want to talk to you ladies about today is exactly that, what you risk coming forward talking about this. I think people in certain mindsets that don't understand the bigger picture, sometimes it can go around that, why are these women saying this? They're just trying to get attention. And I'd love for you guys to address that because I'm sure you get that all the time. And I just want to start by saying, just from my perspective, talking about this, I get people that jump in my inbox and that attack me just for sharing your story. So I'd love for you guys to explain what it is that you risk coming forth talking about this so people really understand what you're facing right now.
Well, Sam, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm happy to start. Thanks, Liz. I mean, for me, I'm not an extrovert. I'm not a complete introvert. I'm somewhere in between, and I'm quite a private person. Before my sons disclosed, you know, there was nothing on the internet about me. I had a social media platform. I barely even put any pictures out of my photographs. You know, just wanted to lead a private life. When the boys disclosed, I pulled off all photographs of them online because I didn't want anyone looking at them like that. Now they're on there for different reasons, but as soon as the courts did what they did and barred me from any contact, giving me a section 9114 order in the UK, which means no applications, no motions, I think it's called in America, no applications for any further contact, etc. For 4 years they barred me. That was 2 years ago. So I just thought publicity is my only hope, and I knew I needed to make a noise about it, and I risk a lot for doing that. You know, there's a paedophile ring involved in my case. My son's disclosed about many people, so I risk, you know, my own personal safety, and I get trolled relentlessly, especially on Twitter. You can, like other platforms such as Facebook and YouTube, provide you with a bit more protection from the trolling, but Twitter doesn't have that protection. I won't go into the technical details, but you can block, but it still doesn't provide that protection. So I am constantly, I'm harassed and stalked, and you know, by faceless entities. It's obvious which one is my ex-husband. That's can't bear the bullshit. He calls himself. Very charming. And then his cronies. I can identify one other, and then you've got all these random people. I've also got extreme fathers' rights activists. I've got them trolling me, and I've also got the anti-satanic ritual abuse people trolling me. The ones who, you know, fight about, oh, this doesn't exist, i.e., I imagine what they're up to. But so I have many groups, as well as the, you know, my paedophile ex and his cronies and the paedophile ring. I have many others, and I just have to carry on because at the end of the day, the danger of me not speaking out, the risk to my sons is far higher. So you kind of like, I don't know if it's the same for you, Lizzie, but you kind of lose all of your, you don't care about what people think as much as you used to. Your skin gets thicker.
Yeah.
You just develop a thick skin about, you know, you just, because you have to, because it's to do with your children's safety at the end of the day. And that's what makes me just carry on. But you know, the trolls usually have an agenda, but to the other trolls, well, yeah, of course, it's not for attention. It's not a pleasant way to spend. You know, it's very draining. It's very draining.
See, I don't mind taking down bullies. Like, actually, if my children were kidnapped by a pedophile, standing up to bullies, I actually enjoy standing up to bullies. Like, it doesn't bother me, right? But when you know that these are adults and they're gaslighting children and they're harming children and they're trafficking children, that's when you're like, what are we talking about here? But my story is similar to Sam's in that when this first happened, I tried to like just go at it straight, talk to my husband and handle it privately. Like, I had teenage kids. So I was like, this is a big deal. And they're in very, crucial timings of their life. Like my son's going into a senior year. My daughter's going into her junior year. My youngest son is in his last year of middle school, right before he starts getting like the academic tracking for high school. Like, this is like a very crucial time. And I want to keep this private. And also, like, you have this mentality, right? We're taught by Hollywood that the police hate pedophiles and the police are going to hurt them and they're going to get, right? And so I know anything happens to the father of my children, even though he's a pedophile, even though he's done these disgusting things, that still has an impact on my kid's life. And the best way to keep my family healthy and safe is for us to acknowledge the problems head on, confront them head on, talk about them, don't live in denial about them, teach the children coping mechanisms, have my husband heal. Like, the actual accountability is what's important, and acknowledgement of the truth, right? But punishment itself, like when you're like, oh, I want that guy this, and I want him in, that actually, I don't wish anybody harm ever. Harm doesn't help me. What helps me and what helps keep my children safe is truth, honesty, and accountability. Now, you can then reflect on that and say, well, that accountability that's hard. That's some hard work that you have to do to take accountability for this shit, right? So that to me is where I tried to approach this problem. But Brian brought the police in. Brian Stryker Weinstein, he called the police. They then called DSS. He had the whole thing orchestrated. And me, not knowing how this works, had this indoctrinated belief that these people were going to come in and help. And instead, they were the very mechanisms to traffic my children away. And so when it comes to like approaching, first and foremost, let's just say one thing. No reasonable person believes that you go out and talk about your children being, left with a pedophile, kidnapped, all this shit, homeless, blah, 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 to get attention. No reasonable person says that. And the only people who say that are the people trying to discredit you, but it's such a thinly veiled bullshit excuse. So like, I don't even want to give it entertainment. Like, oh, well, let me tell you why I'm not doing it for attention. Like, it's obvious. Everybody knows it. There's no fucking way. I have been homeless for 11 months, not able to see my children. Yeah. Not able to be with them. Nobody would ever fucking do this for attention. Do you know what I mean? This is like, I should not say nobody. I should have integrity with my words. But let's be clear.
No sane person.
Okay, yes. And you have to look at who we are as people consistently. I consistently give verifiable evidence of everything of which I state. Okay. And I ask people to do their own research. I am not afraid of the truth. I am begging for it. I am begging for it. Right. There's that adage, the truth doesn't mind being questioned. A lie hates being interrogated or something like that. Like, it's that idea. Like, of course, like I want people to know what's going on. My husband is like, it's the same thing. They're crazy. And they're doing it for attention. Those are the only two things that they turn to. And whether the story happens in the US, whether the story is happening in Spain, where my friends are, whether it's happening in the UK, whether it's happening up in Canada, where I'm getting people called, the defense is all the same. They're crazy and they're just making shit up for attention. No, absolutely not. So
right, it's not attention anybody would want. It's not like you're
famous
or you're being recognized for something that you're super proud of. These are really vulnerable moments that you guys share with the public. Yeah. And one reason I wanted to bring you guys on today is because you're both fighting the judicial judicial system, or as I like to call it, the injustice system. And both of you together have very similar stories, even though they're different in a lot of ways. And if there happens to be echoing, feel free to mute it on your end too, if that helps.
Okay.
Yeah, just in case, or if there's any type of echo. But I think together, people need to see that this is really a worldwide
Yes.
pandemic that's happening. And it's not just one single case. There are many, many cases. And I'd love for both of you, having gone through what you did, to explain to people how the judicial system works in both countries so people can understand these parallels.
Yes. And this is like something that everybody should understand. The story, my story, Sam's story, as horrific as they are, they're not unique. Like the idea that they're using in the US, these fake orders, or not fake, but bogus, because they're real, they're issued by a judge, but these bogus orders of protection to then take you away from the children, take a protected parent. If you complain about abuse or pedophilia of your child and you stand up to protect them, you were punished for protecting. Punished for protecting, you just research those terms and you'll get decades of evidence of parents who come out and say that's exactly the purpose of the judicial system. And now what I have learned is that, you know, you think that you go to the justice system for justice, but that is only because we have no firsthand verifiable experience with that. Everything we were taught about the justice system, we were taught by Hollywood and by our high school yearbooks, which tell us that government is good. The true mechanism, the true function of our justice system is to extort and traffic people. That's it. It is a legal mechanism for criminal collusion. It's a legal mechanism for criminals to extort and traffic humans. But just like any abuser, they don't abuse 100% of the people 100% of the time, or you would stand up. Even the pimp gives his slaves necklaces, diamond necklaces, a little bit of attention sometimes, right? They have to mix it in. They have to mix it in. So these are mechanisms of criminal enterprises that are used to extort and traffic humans, right? At every level, from children all the way up to our elderly. But they get away with their crimes through clever marketing. No, I'm just going to call myself a judge and I'm going to call myself honorable, Your Honor, and therefore you're going to be tricked into thinking that what I'm doing is honorable, even though none of my actions actually are honorable, or you have any evidence of what you're thinking. So this is not a US problem. It's not a UK problem. It's not a Canada problem. It's a worldwide problem of judicial. I don't even want to say corruption, because corruption makes it seem like it's a pure system that was then corrupted. It's not a broken system. It is working exactly as it is designed. It is a designated system for human trafficking and extortion. And they just mix in a little bit of bomb bombing every now and again. And so, you know, people will say, well, that didn't happen to me, so it must be you, right? But if you get all the people together, we are the majority, the ones who are like, no, that had nothing to do with law and order or facts or evidence, and everything to do with a criminal enterprise. What do you think, Sam?
I completely agree, Lizzie. It took me a while to kind of reach that conclusion.
Yes.
Because at the beginning I was almost wanting to be like, oh, you've made a mistake, Judge. Look, here's my program.
Exactly.
Look,
because our indoctrinated beliefs are so strong. It's hard to break through that. And that's, Emma, what I'm so grateful for you and for Sam, because what if we do nothing else? What Sam and I can help do is get people to that spot. Like, I wasted weeks trusting the police. And then I wasted months thinking I could go through the judicial system to get justice, right? But if people know, holy shit, that judge is a trafficker, and they're going to try and traffic my children, they can take different steps right off the bat. But if, like Sam and like me, you keep thinking, well, let me do this, and if I just do this and let me do this, I'll get justice, then you're just giving them more time to perpetuate their crimes.
And it only takes I mean, I know you found out things about your judges as well, Lizzie, but with my judge, I think, did I mention this to you, Emma? And you've probably read or seen my interviews about this, but Judge Lee, so there's so much dirt on him. So first of all, he once directed an adoption agency in Nottingham. So Nottinghamshire, that's where I lived for a few years. I'm not from there, I'm from Manchester, but I lived in Nottingham for a few years after the boys disclosed. And so Judge Lee, he was actually the director of an adoption agency. So it was a conflict of interest, family court judge, putting children up for adoption, stealing children and giving them to adoption. I've met a lady, one of his victims, who he stole her 2 sons off her and left her with a baby girl. So, and then they've ended up with a gay couple. And at first she was seeing them supervised, and they were complaining about having sore bottoms and things like that. It's just hideous. And so Judge Lee had done that. Also, so that was between 2009 and 2012. And one of the social workers who worked at this adoption agency is called Andres Loggins. He is now in prison. He's a convicted paedophile. He's serving a 20-year prison sentence as from 2016 for horrific abuse, sexual, physical abuse in Nottinghamshire care homes in the 1980s. This man, Andres Loggins, is on friendly terms with Judge Lee. Judge Lee did a fun run, a half marathon in 2011, and Andres Loggins was one of the sponsors. There was only about 15 sponsors, and he left like a message for him, like a friendly message. So he's on friendly terms with a paedophile, a convicted paedophile. But one of the worst things of all about Judge Lee, is if that's not bad enough, is that, so after I began speaking out and getting quite vocal, there was a whistleblower police officer who worked for the Metropolitan Police, John Wedger, and you may or may not have heard of him. He's from England, but I know he got quite a large audience, and he was being very outspoken about satanic ritual abuse. And so because he'd created he used to do shout outs for me now and again, and then through that I had a few people then following me through my platforms. One of them was this lady, and she contacted me. This lady, say anonymous because you have to protect her identity, but she very credible, lovely lady, and she'd actually met Judge Lee socially 10 years ago. So not as a judge, but as a, as a person, if he is one, if you could call him one of them. But without giving away who she is, she, through a friend of Judge Lee's, she saw evidence, because there was a civil case where money was involved. She saw evidence in the form of an email of Judge Lee encouraging his friend to commit perjury in a civil case.
Right.
He said, say what you like, make it up, lie. Those were his exact words. So that shows he's a Crown Court judge and also a family court judge with zero respect for the law, encouraging his friend to commit perjury in court. So that's my judge. That's what we know about him. And
my judge assigned her family's company to supervise me. Right?
Oh.
Now everybody that's on the case is paid for by the pedophile. Okay? On record paid for by the pedophile, with the exception of the judge. The lawyer for the children, and this is what people should know, like if you want to know what they do so that you're ahead of the game, right? Because I get a phone call from somebody who said, whatever you do, they're going to ask you to start getting psychological exams.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Because what they do is they flip the switch on the burden of proof. They falsely accuse you of something, and then they say, now you go and prove to us that you're not crazy. You go and get that's not the fucking way it works. Number one, there's a presumption of innocence until guilty. And number two, the burden of proof, presumption of innocence and burden of proof are two of the tenets of our international justice system that these pedophiles are trying to switch. Right? So I can falsely accuse you and the burden of proof is on you. And you are presumed guilty until innocent. And that's why I can use these orders of protection, which are never allowed access to the court to be heard on, as a weapon against you. They are illegal and unlawful. But the problem is the judiciary and the police are enforcing them. The judiciary and the police are enforcing illegal, unlawful orders. So here are some of the tricks that the judges will use and what I've heard internationally that they do. Okay, again, the story is consistent. This is why it points more, in fact, to this being a spiritual war, because I don't think the judge in Briarcliff is meeting with the judge in Europe and they're coming up with the exact same wording and the exact same plan to take away my kids and Sam's kids. Yet they're using the same language. They're using the same tactics. They're following this. We even have different laws in our country, but they're actually going about it in the same way. So that's why this becomes more of like a spiritual war, where it's being, these people have sold their soul to the devil, and it's a coordinated like effort by the devil to like take over this humanistic control. So here's what they do. They first and foremost falsely accuse you of things and then mandate that you get psychiatric exams, okay? They don't give you a chance to be heard. So if you file things in the court, they will throw your stuff out, but the abuser or the predator gets their things passed quickly. They give you gag orders, so you're not allowed to talk about it. And if you do, they can take away your children. And the idea for me was, I was like, well, you already took away my children. There's nothing, you've taken everything from me. You took my home, you took all my money. I don't even have my belongings. I've never been able to get my clothes, including in the dead of winter, right? Like I can't get my mail. I'm not allowed to see my dog, right? There's no plausible deniability for any of that. So given that those things are true, the only thing I have for me is telling the truth, but they do everything they can to stop you from telling the truth. They put out these gag orders, right? But most of what they do is coercion. They know what they're doing is illegal and unlawful, but they impose these orders on you because most people will comply with the threat. Do you understand? I am going to lock you away for 5 years if you ever mention that you have a daughter. Okay, so do it, because I have a daughter and I'm not gonna, that's against my first amendment right. So go ahead. But like some people will be like, yeah, so now I can't wish my daughter happy birthday on Facebook because the judge said they put me in prison. Like that, it's the coercion. The courts are a mechanism of coercive control over its people. So they issue these unlawful orders and they just see if you fight back or comply. Now, Sam, have you ever, I know they put a 4-year gag order and said that you can't submit anything to the court. Have you tried to submit something and just see what they do?
It was the gag order just goes on for however long they like.
Right.
I was 18, I think, or something. But the section 9114, meaning I can't apply for contact. No, I haven't applied for contact in that time. But it was like with the judge's judgment, I don't want to give too much away, actually. I'll be careful talking about certain things. But
okay, please.
If I can interrupt for just a second, muting while she's talking. I'm getting a little bit of an echo, so I'm just.
Oh, sure.
Sam can be heard.
Okay, let me mute.
Yeah, so my approach over the last couple of years has been the publicity, the drawing attention to the family court, the drawing attention to my case, writing the book. So I've not made any court applications in that particular, for contact for that reason, because I know it'd just be a flat out no. So there's absolutely no point. I'm hoping that by doing what I'm doing, by going public, it's going to get justice. It's going to get the boys back. And I think it's something that I wouldn't have done had I been having contact. I probably would have been playing their game. But it's a very dangerous thing to do, to ban someone from all contact. For the court, it's very dangerous, because then you can just be that voice. And a few days ago, a lady, she's from England, but she's living in a different country, but she has decided to break her gag order. So I was like, well done. So she's gone out publicly, speaking out public. So yeah, hats off to her. She's called Helen. You might follow her, Lizzie. I don't know if you follow her.
Yeah, she actually, it was awesome because she did reach out to me and say, I was so inspired by you guys and how brave you were that I started talking out. And she's like, I just feel a different sense of empowerment, right? And I was like, listen, they try to say, Brian, and this is the other thing, you know, we say like they have three things. They say, oh, you're doing it for attention. Oh, you're crazy. The other thing that they say is, this is all your fault. You did this. You brought this on you. I'm like, what, are you fucking stupid? Like, no, I didn't. Like, but the idea was, oh, if you only disappeared and just abandoned your children and never told people I was a pedophile, I wouldn't be stalking you and sending people to your house. This is your fault I'm stalking you. So anyways, it was good because she did reach out to me to say, because we were brave and talking out, it made her be brave. And I want to make this clear. This issue, while it has been recently that a lot of mothers have come up to me and I've gotten in touch with, this is not just a maternal issue. If Ghislaine Maxwell has taught us nothing else, it's that women can be equally as guilty as these horrific sexual crimes against children. And that was a real big eye-opener for me.
Yeah, and some of my, sorry to interrupt, Lizzie, some of my son's abusers are women, including the paternal grandmother and others.
Yeah. So. And for me, when I came towards my abuse and I understood like my abuse with my father, when I talked to my mother, I assumed my mother was going to be like, oh my God, I never knew. I'm so sorry. And like be in shock and then have questions for me. And that's what I expected. What I didn't expect is what happened, which is just for my mom to be like, no, Lizzie, you're not well.
Oh my goodness.
I can't talk to you like this.
Oh.
And fucking shut us off. And I was like, Mom, what are you doing? And what's interesting about my mother's situation is my mother is the breadwinner in my parents' relationship, right? So it's not like she's financially dependent on my father or anything, which is a main reason that women sometimes like are coerced into going along with this. So again, it was that eye-opening awareness that this is also women. I have a father up in Upper New York who literally is having this happen to him and has had his children trafficked to this woman, his ex-wife, who has a history. She had 2 other sons when he met her. And he only found out after they got divorced that both of them, because the mother said, oh yeah, both the fathers abandoned the children and I had to raise these boys alone. And that was a lie that he knew, and he lived with her. Then as soon as he started seeing these things, they separated. She then went crazy and started doing all this shit to him with these orders of protection that he can't be heard on. She works in the governor's office. So all of a sudden he started getting arrested over Christmas and was like put in prison for a misdemeanor, which you should only be held for 72 hours. He was kept there for 5 days, right? So right there, it's illegal. And then when he got out, they put an ankle bracelet on him. And he wasn't ever able to even be heard on the charges. And this man makes his living by being a district manager. And he's subjected to the same type of abuse that we are. So this is not a mother story. This is not a father story. This is a case of trafficking through our court systems and using the same mechanisms wherever you are in the world to do it, with these gag orders, with these unlawful judicial orders that aren't based in fact, evidence, or law, yet they are enforced by the cops and the police. That's the difference. Like if Sam knew, and if I knew, that if I showed up at my house and the cops and Brian called the police and the police came and said, Mr. Weinstein, this is her house, she's not doing anything wrong, I know you're saying you want an order of protection, but what crime has she ever committed? Who has she ever harmed, Mr. Weinstein? This makes no sense, Mr. Weinstein, but that's not what they do.
Nope.
They show up and they make it a crime for you to be a parent.
Yeah.
They make it a crime for you to protect your children. They make it a crime for you to even let your children know that you exist and you're fighting for them.
Yeah.
Can
It
you guys
becomes a
explain
crime.
these connections? So we have judges, we have police. What are all the different pieces of this collusion? Who all is involved with this trafficking ring system?
It's multi-agency, isn't it? Multi-agency. So it's the courts, it's the family court, I know this is all different language in America, but it's the family court, which is CPS, isn't it, over there? Then it's the police, then it's social services, which is what social services called. So it's same. And then there's CAFCAS, which over there is guardian ad litem. So I have to get used to all these different guardian ad litems. It's multi-agency, and it's like they're all the same. And also the psychologists as well that they bring in, as you know, Lizzie. It's the psychologists it's all part of the network. It's a big money-making gravy train.
Go deeper into that, because that's the part I think people are wondering is, what would be the purpose? Why? I don't believe it, because it doesn't. What do they benefit doing all of this?
Well,
explain how money comes in when they do this.
well, let's be clear about something, okay? First and foremost, when everybody's like, oh, you think everybody's in on it? Well, everybody has to be in on it, because if they weren't, it wouldn't happen. If the cops just did their job and arrested people when they did this, so the cops have to be on it. If the lawyers went to court and they said, judge, that's an unlawful order and you can't enforce that, so the lawyers have to be in on it. The judges, if they didn't if the judges said, lawyer, you can't ask me for an order of protection against somebody who's never committed a crime. Writing an email while you're missing, sir, is not a crime, right? So they have to be in on it. So again, it's a brilliant marketing campaign by the abusers to say, if you make the connections, the obvious connections which have to happen in order for the crimes to be perpetuated. If you do that, that means there's something wrong with you.
Exactly.
Or the other one that I love is bystander. Bystander is a brilliant marketing campaign to get people who are helping the abusers not feel guilty about it. You only help a victim or the abuser. That's it. Those are the only two options. It is black or white. You help the victim or you help the abuser. That's it. This notion of having a bystander who's uninvolved is so ridiculous. And that person clearly, by their silence and by their compliance, are helping the abuser. But that's a brilliant marketing campaign to make people help the abuser and feel okay about it. Where all of this
designed to protect abusers.
Say that one more time.
Why is the system designed to protect abusers? How does that benefit the people protecting them?
I think they make more money from it. I mean, I think it's a case of
I want people to understand that. That's so important. Making money. What are the different ways that they can make money through this?
Well, everybody involved gets paid an absolute fortune. You know, lawyers, they get the highest salaries in the world, don't they? They get high, you know, over here, what you pay, what, £300 for a regular solicitor. You could pay $1,000 an hour for a QC, you know, a high up barrister.
I mean, Emma, the quick answer to this is this. If you went in and the judge said, oh my God, look at the evidence of abuse, and you gave the children to the non-abusive parent and set up protective measures, there's no business. There's no business. So
no
the
business.
So
let's throw it out into a lengthy, let's bring all these professionals in, and oh yes, this is, you know, by the end of it, mine cost £150,000 or slightly more, and I haven't got a house anymore. They just rinse you dry of everything because they know that you will pay everything you've got to try and protect your children and get justice. So the barristers are getting all that money. the professionals are paid all, you know, the court-appointed experts and all those people, all those horrendous people, they're paid an absolute fortune just to keep this ticking over. And it would just take a whistleblower or some insider to have some sense of morality about this and think this isn't right and expose it. Which brings me on to, have you heard of the is it called St. Louis in Missouri? Is it that how you pronounce it, or Louis? St. Louis.
Yeah.
So
Cash for kids. The cash for kids.
Did you know about this, Emma?
I have not heard this.
There was a leaked Zoom call. Somebody has leaked it. Some good person has actually leaked this. Nobody knows who, but they leaked it to Michael Volpe, the investigative journalist over there in Chicago, who's exposing family court corruption. And it's this leaked Zoom call between judges, guardian ad litems, all, you know, there was 30 odd of them. And they were basically they were setting up this mum who had alleged sexual abuse of her child or children, and they were colluding against her. They were colluding, and yeah, they were. It's called, Liz said, cash for kids. It's because one of them was talking about what they should call this account to put the money in. Oh, let's call it cash for. I just call it cash for kids.
Yeah, Emma, look it up. It's a really, really important. You will latch right onto this. It literally has the judges, the lawyers, the child advocates, all acknowledging the trafficking of children, how they're going to hide it, where they're going to put the money, who's going to pay, what they should say, and joking about it.
Yeah,
it's all right. So not only is that evidence bleeding, but I've talked about this before, but in 2012, the U.S. Department of Justice, so this isn't an outside organization, the U.S. Department of Justice came out with the Saunders report. And the Saunders was a psychologist based out of University of Michigan. And he said that this is 2012, 9 years ago, 70% of the cases, the children are knowingly given to the abuser in a domestic situation, because then it stirs up the business. Then the non-abusive parent fights back. If all they did was go to court and you got justice, then nobody would use the court, because we would just, and the abusers would know that they couldn't get anything there. So what they do is they give the child to the abusive parent, and then the non-abusive parent fights back, and you've got money for the court clerks, you've got the lawyers, you've got the judges, you've got the duty officers, you've got the transcriptionists, you've got the lawyers for the children, you've got the supervisors. It's a business. It is a business, but they acknowledge this. This is what is happening in our world. It's almost as though, because they told us, and then we don't make change, therefore they take our compliance as consent. These demons take our compliance as our consent, because they aren't hiding what they're doing. They're putting it out in official reports and in news media, and we're still complying with it. We're not standing up to really take a different position. We have this mentality sometimes, like, this will change everything. Like, oh, Jeffrey Epstein, that'll change everything. Harvey Weinstein, that'll change everything. Now that we know it, it'll change everything. But what we have to do is not only recognize the problem, but then have deliberate intention towards changing the issue, right? And so without that deliberate intention, we're still in this, indoctrinated mindset that because we saw that happening in where was it? Wisconsin, right, Sam?
Which case?
The cash for kids was where again?
No, it was in Missouri, St. Louis,
Missouri, right. So because we heard about that now that makes everything better. It's not enough. We have to educate ourselves about the problem, have proper attribution of the problem, and then proper attribution of the solutions.
And the part that I really want to drive home for people is, we know that human trafficking in general is $150 billion a year business. The fact that people can't even compute that, there's no other industry other than the drug industry that makes anywhere near that. It would be at the very top of the Forbes list, of the Forbes 500, whatever different list that they come out with the most wealthy companies or industries. And the thing that people aren't asking is who is getting this money? And why wouldn't people collude to have a piece of that pie if they were in that mindset, right? And going into a lot of these things are very generational. So why wouldn't somebody who's in a generational incest home or a satanic ritual abuse home that's been passed down generation to generation? These are very high performing people in society. Look at both of your ex-husbands, both of them, and the people that surrounded them. They're not people that people looked at as slum. These are very respected people that were successful, that people looked at and admired or thought highly of. Why wouldn't somebody become a lawyer or a doctor and collude in this, right? We look at big pharma and we can wrap our minds around how that billion-dollar industry, that there's people literally profiting off of our sickness and calling it health in the name of getting money. But we, for some reason, can't wrap our mind around that people would do this also with children, that children are a bigger business opportunity than any drug, because the usage of children when it comes to trafficking is over and over and over again. Perpetual cycle of a whole child's life, however long that is, whether it's till they turn 18 and they're legal, or whether it's that 7 years that they're normally stuck in trafficking. It's a business, and it's a recyclable business. It's something that people can use over and over and over and over again, depending on what it is, whether it is labor or sex trafficking. And in your cases, trafficking to these very affluent families that have been generationally conducting themselves and enforcing themselves and infiltrating themselves into society, into these very powerful positions to keep this cycle going.
Absolutely. And then it doesn't even end there, does it? Because it's you know, if you look at the prisons, if you look at the overwhelming majority of prisoners have been abused as children. So you've got, you know, the family court victims, you know, the child family court victims who grow up as adults. And then we've got the pharmaceutical industry as well. As you said, it's feeding into that whole cycle of money, greed, you know, how can they profit off all people's misery? It's just so it is a cycle of whatever you want to call it: corruption, money, greed. And
100%. It's just,
we need to say who's getting the money, who's pocketing this 150 billion.
Well, I mean, honestly, it's all the players that we just mentioned. It's the judges. It's the, and again, you don't even have to prove that they're getting paid on the side, although in many cases you can prove that. It is their job. That is their job to traffic children. They make money when they make decisions about where humans go, where they live, what they do, what restrictions are on their life, who can see them, who can talk to them when. That is their job. So even in their job description as it stands, those people, that's what I need people to understand. It is the very employment of those people, right? Now, they hide under this marketing just like everything else, right? Like everybody has a story. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't a child molester. He was just taking teenage UN representatives around the world. He was a UN representative, right? Sandusky owned a troubled boys network. Bernie Madoff was just a really wealthy guy who was, gosh darn it, lucky in finance. They all have a story, but whether you buy into their story or you actually look at the evidence of what they do is up to you. And so that's what we're really talking about. Like, get rid of their shiny advertising campaign. They are not honorable. They are not judges. These people are human traffickers. Yeah. They're human traffickers, and like all abusers, they don't abuse 100% of the people 100% of the time, or we would stand up. So they know how to mix it in. But the problem is now they've gotten too greedy and they've not really balanced it well, so that the prevalence is coming out. We are now aware of their egregious, unlawful behavior more than we've ever been aware before. And people like Sam and I, you know, maybe it would have taken us 3 years to get to the point where we got in a couple months. And then hopefully, based on what we're doing and what you're doing, Emma, people will get to where we were in a couple of days. And then that's how we then take direct initiatives to really attack this problem. And if you're asking what I believe one of the clear solutions to this problem is, I believe it rests in the emolument of judicial immunity.
Yeah.
Judicial immunity is only supposed to exist when the judge's actions have proven to be lawful. That if his actions have been proven to be lawful, if he was acting under the color of law in a way that was within the confines of law, then he should have, or she should have, an emolument of judicial immunity, so they can't be sued just because you're so upset about things. However, that is abused, and that tenet of justice is not applied appropriately. So the judges are granted immunity whether they acted appropriately or not. And whenever you have anybody above the law, I mean, come on, guys, we don't need to be fucking rocket scientists to understand that if a judge can kidnap your children, take away your home, take away all your finances, imprison you, poison you, and never even give you access to the trial to be heard, never even have you found guilty of any crime, which is all my case, and that is consistently for a year. If one person can do that to another person, that is not a legal person, that is a criminal, right? And so we need to get rid of this emolument of judicial immunity. And I mean, I know that it exists in the United States. I know that I think it's something over like 25,000 times. It's been challenged in court and held up over 25,000 times. I mean, give me a break. But right now, we've got Clarence Thomas, who's on the very conservative end, and Sotomayor, who are on the New York State Supreme, who are on the US Supreme Court, who both object to the emolument of judicial immunity and want that challenge. But then we've got Edwards, who's got links to Epstein and pedophilia, who's the chief of our Supreme Court on that same bench. So what I believe needs to happen as a solution is we, the people, need to stand up against this emolument of judicial immunity, because everybody can clearly understand the logic that if somebody can act in any way, however they want, at any time, and do criminal acts to you and not be held accountable, that is not justice, that is tyranny. So we, the people, have to demand that we can get this, that we can get rid of judicial immunity. But Sam, do you guys have judicial immunity in England as well, in the UK?
Yeah. It's exactly the same thing. They never come up against any criticism or anything the judges. There's the Judicial Complaints Board, so you can lodge a complaint. So that actually, my judge again he had a complaint made against him. It was a criminal act because he logged on to a computer system that he shouldn't have been looking at of another trial. That was nothing to do with him. He just logged on and had a look, and it was discovered. And he was just mentioned. He got a bit of a telling off, but it didn't go any further. He was never criminalized.
Yeah. That's the other thing that is consistent in all of these stories across the country, is there's an illusion of justice. Well, you would be able to complain to the Judicial Review Board if your judge ever did anything. If your judge even had ex parte communications, which means they talked to the one side without you being present, they could be thrown out and they would be discredited. It's bullshit and bogus. They lie to you. They present, here are the 15 different mechanisms where you will get justice, and none of them actually work.
Exactly.
I've gone to the DA's office, the Attorney General's office, the Chief Judge of the state, the Chief Judge that oversees the family practice. It's all lip service, but they have to have it. It's the illusion of justice. And as soon as we realize we're not getting justice because this is a system of trafficking, not a system of justice, then we can approach the problem. But we have to identify the problem first.
Absolutely. And as well, I know your case, it's never got heard in court. They're making orders for you left, right and centre without you being present and all the rest of it. But even obviously with my case, I was present, there was hearings, there was a court case that went on for quite some time. How long was it? Maybe nearly a year and a half. And it was just all a con, obviously. But if the press had been allowed to attend that and report on it, report on my evidence, report on the father's,
Right.
and heard all the witnesses, you know, me and my family, and then the pedos basically, and then the police who supported the father, the corrupt police, and you know, there's no way that you know, instead of the judge actually reported on you. So what I'm trying to say is that it should be open to the press.
Correct. 100%.
The judges should have a camera on them as well, like the police do. They should have a
Yep.
camera on. And you know, with me, because obviously I ran and it became public because the police were hunting us, it became a massive international, you know, it was on the news. That doesn't happen normally, but because the police said, there was a big manhunt, the judge had put out that there was this dangerous woman on the run with her 2 children, then they reported it in the press. So first of all, they did, missing person. So people were concerned for these missing people. Let's try and find them. And then they went on to abduction. So then some people started to get suspicious. You know, the intelligent people on social media were getting suspicious then. And some people were telling the police to F off as well. If they came to the house, they were like, F off, she's a good mother, blah, blah, blah. And then when they found us 10 days later, because the judge didn't like it that I had so much support on social media of the Women's Coalition and of many other places, then he reported the false finding. He invited the press in and just said, I found that the mother caused the boys to ingest a small amount of sedatives just to give rise to a positive test to set the father up, blah, blah, blah. So then I had to see it's still there in the newspapers, mother drug children. And it was just in response, he was basically pissed off because he had, you know, I'd received so much publicity and positive publicity on social media that he would then put that out, that there's no opportunity for me to say to the press, actually, this is what happened. And then he gagged me straight away at that court hearing. He gagged me. So then I couldn't, but worst of all, because obviously gagging orders can be broken. If you want to talk about your case, there's a way around it, and people are taking the risk. But the worst thing in England for that, they don't do it as much in America apparently, but it's giving the press a reporting restriction order. So like for my case, the press want to report on it. They want to publish the lie detector test, or probably, I don't know, not so much now, but at the time. But the judge gave them such a massive gagging order that they couldn't even say my name. You know, even though the judges put out the boys, all the boys' names are out there, his name is out there, you know, my ex-husband's name is out there, his parents' names, blah, 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 my name, obviously, but I wasn't allowed to say the truth. It was like, right, that's it, that's the truth. And
judicial tyranny, like a judge can issue an order.
Tell you in a gagging order. I want people to understand what that is, because not everybody experiences that. What are the restrictions with one whenever they issue it?
Like mine literally says that I can't post a picture or mention that I have children. Like I can't do it. I can't ever post a picture. If I've ever posted a picture of them or mentioned that I have children, I have to take it down.
Or like what?
Or you can risk going to jail or be heavily fined. It's fucking ridiculous. That's what I'm talking about. It's a clear violation of our constitutional rights, of our First Amendment rights. I posted, Emma, if you look on I just posted a new one that the new judge just gave me. And again, these are all given ex parte, which means one party. And when he assigns them, he's supposed to also give you what's called the accusatory instrument. So he's trying to say, Mr. Weinstein came to me and he reported these things. So in response, I'm now giving this. He petitioned with this. And so in response, I'm giving you this order of protection. He's just like, nope, I'm just giving you this on my own. You can't ever go near your children, say you have children, post a picture of your children, mention your children, ever. And if you do, you can go to jail or you can be fined. I'm going through a divorce, I'm entitled to get all of the financial documents from my husband's work. Nope. If you contact your husband's work for anything, The lawyer there has my will, which I need to amend to make him not be my healthcare proxy for anything, right? I can't get in touch with her because if I contact her, I could go to jail. Do you see how fucking stupid this is? But this is the bullshit. It's completely unlawful and illegal. But the problem is the police will use it as plausible deniability to arrest you. The police will literally have come to me and stopped me and pulled me over. If you go back to my videos on April 16th, they pulled me over because they said I posted a picture saying I missed my children. It's obscene. It's not a crime. They're making things that aren't a crime. And it is illegal. It is against our inalienable rights to take something that is an inalienable right and turn it into a crime. So you can't take my right to be a parent and turn it into a crime, yet that's what they're doing. And my husband is a brilliant, and I mean this as the biggest compliment, a brilliant lawyer, because he knows how to use legal sophistry to get crimes perpetuated through the courts. So my brilliant lawyer of a husband is laying case law and precedents to make it that pedophilia is acceptable. And if you protect your children from such, you can go to jail. And that just can't stand. It's just fucking bullshit. Like when people are like, oh my God, okay, I won't speak up against pedophilia. No, it's just the opposite. We all need to rise up and say how ridiculous this is. Say we're not going to tolerate it. Make it known that we understand that these judges aren't honorable, that a judge actually means a criminal, right?
Yeah.
Like, make it known that we see them for what they are. And then like, let's fucking move on to a better humanity. But like, this idea of just constantly backing down because we're afraid of the consequences if we stand up has gotten us to the point we are now. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. The way to get rid of a bully is to stand up to them and to call them out and to remind them that they too can be a good person. To remind them that their evil is a choice. And no matter how evil they've been, they always have a choice to start being a better person. It is their choice to act evil. It is their choice to abuse our children. It is their choice to live in denial and try and perpetuate these false reputations. It's a choice. They're not victims. When they were a child and they were abused, yes, they were a victim. But not all victims victimize. People who were victimized as a child grow up and they make a choice. They make a choice to be a defender or they make a choice to be an abuser. That's it. If you're not defending, you're abusing because you're perpetuating the abuse. So anyways, that was my last reel.
For that, is that similar in the UK, Sam? Her restrictions, does that cross over and sound similar to yours, or is it a little bit different in the UK?
There are similarities and differences. It's just as tyrannical. I mean, it was like with my case, it was like the showing to, there was a court case going on and, they pretend acting, oh yes, we're having this case, we're going to investigate, blah, blah, blah. It was all a setup. It was just made to appear like they were following due process and all the rest of it. But it's the same really. If you strip it back down, it's the same worldwide. It's, as Lizzie says, it's happening to not just women, it's happening to men as well. It just happens that when it's to do with sexual abuse, we know women do it as well, but it's mainly men, and hence why there's more of us women who it happens to this. But yeah, for other reasons, like I'm going to be interviewing another man soon who's a victim of the system, and that will just, is trying to protect from abuse from a grandparent on the mother's side. It's the same thing. They just turned against him, and now he's not seen his children for 5 years. He's been criminalized. He's been arrested. You joke about it. It's like your heart races when the door goes, don't you? And it's just horrible. You feel like you're hiding all the time. It does cause levels of PTSD in variable times. I'm sure it's court abuse, isn't it? It's and that's another subject, but it's just what it does to you. But
in the
you know,
US, it's called litigation abuse. They call it litigation abuse, that they use the courts as a form of method of punishment against you. And, you know, I didn't like go into this specifically, but like I've literally, I mean, I've been kidnapped, I've been poisoned, I've been stalked, I've been like the amount of fucking abuse that's come down on me. And this is in addition to having my children kidnapped. This is in addition to having all my finances stolen. This is in addition to like having the police just randomly pull me over on the side of the road and saying, hey, I know you didn't have an order of protection 3 weeks ago, but I'm gonna arrest you anyway. It's like, it's like the most obscene amount of unwanted attention in your life. So the idea that anybody would ever suggest that you were choosing this as opposed to you were left with no other choice.
exactly, yeah.
I'm left with no other choice but
Exactly.
speaking the truth and trying to protect my children by making sure the truth is known, because my husband is under this false delusion that all he has to do is punish me and hurt me and make me go away, and all of his problems will disappear. Nobody will think that he's a pedophile. Like everything will just go back to the way it was as soon as he can get rid of me. And that, I mean, it's so ridiculous that they think that way, but it's true. And so we have to get the truth out, and we have to get the evidence out so that people can see the evidence for themselves and make their own conclusions. So God forbid, when and if anything does happen to me, there are people who continue on with the truth and will fight for justice in other ways.
Well, be careful, Lizzie. I know, you know, just be careful, and I'll be praying for you as well, because I've become a Christian in all of this, and I pray all the time. You know, I'm constantly, I'm praying for my children, praying for other children, praying for the exposure. You know, things have happened. You know, I've got a prayer group. We see things happening, so it is happening. The exposure is happening, and I know people have prophesied that the judges are going to come down. Firstly in America, and we're already seeing that happening with the 30-odd recusals in Missouri, and then it's going to happen worldwide. And I would just keep praying for that. But it's not just about praying; it's about taking the right action as well, and doing as much as we can. But we've got to be careful as well. But I think on the other side, us putting our faces out there, and you know, if there's any other parents watching now who are going through similar, it does protect your children in a way as well, because we're speaking, we're being their voice at the moment. We're speaking on their behalf, and we're putting the truth out there, and that makes the perpetrators more likely to be watched by others, and they want to paint the picture of being these great men, you know. So it does give a level of protection for our children by what we're doing as well. And obviously we want to get justice, and we will do.
They all need the deception.
Being able to document everything and put it in public so people can see, does that offer you a level of protection, do you feel?
Yeah, well, it does with me, because I was it was put out in the press that I drugged my children, so I didn't know what kind of response I'd get. Luckily, most people have been they can see through it and they know me. But at the end of the day, people could still believe that. That puts me in danger. So by me publishing my polygraph tests and my mother's, because she was dragged into this judgment as well. The judge couldn't decide who it was or whether it was one of us or both of us. So he just created this bizarre finding. So yeah, by me pointing out my evidence, you know, the drugging evidence, and just to say, look, you know, my children have been drugged. There's my father, he thinks, so this is the only member of my family who's betrayed me and my sons. He sees them, because he can't accept that my ex-husband has done what he's done. He can't accept all of that. Or maybe he does know that deep down. He also knows that I've not drugged them. He knows that's not true. But he likes to think this ridiculous explanation given by the police saying, oh, they could have got it off worktops. So that's an example of cognitive dissonance, or just being downright stupid and thick. That's my father. It prefers to go like, oh, well, I know you got it
Can
off
I
work.
just say one thing about that? I
Yeah.
need to stop you. Consider this. People aren't stupid. People are manipulative. I married a pedophile, unbeknownst to me, because I hadn't dealt with my father's pedophilia. And so I attracted the same thing into my life. You need to consider the possibility. Your father knows exactly what he's talking about. I know you don't, because if you did think it, you would have considered it on your own by now.
Maybe
But it is consistent. It is consistent. It is consistent with an abuser to then devalue and invalidate your abuse or your children's abuse. All you can't say that your father did or did not, but you can say that what he's doing right now by siding with your abuser and not protecting your children is consistent with an abusive personality. That's all you can say. Okay.
Yeah.
Just open your mind up about that a little bit and consider it. I mean, it's, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like, as you were talking, I was like, wow, wait a minute, that makes sense. Like, you marry what you lived with through your whole life.
So no, it's not anything like that. I mean, I used to think about all that attracting stuff. I definitely don't think I attracted a Satanist, ritual abusing, paedophile, this, that, and the other, because paedophile is only one aspect of what this man is. It's pure, unadulterated, demonic, evil, spiritual, it's just what these people do. It's on a, they do mind control.
Yes.
It's torture, near drowning. I mean, I won't go into all the disclosures now, but they murder, they do sacrifices of animals, they do sacrifices of babies. People don't think this stuff goes on, but the babies they get hold of are unregistered, so these babies aren't accounted for. That's how they get hold of them. And they carry out abortions, forced abortions. They do all kinds of stuff like that. So I'd never think that I attracted that into my life. Definitely not. But I mean, I think for me, I always think he was looking for a certain kind of person, as I'm sure your ex-husband did as well, looking for a certain kind of person. Maybe like for me, I wasn't abused as a child. I had a good upbringing. But so I was naive. I didn't know all the signs. I didn't know about paedophilia and how rife it was. I didn't have a clue about all of that. I've been protected from it all. So I think he saw, oh, this is somebody who I can pull the wool over their eyes with. I know it's different with you because you were abused, but I think with me, he just saw somebody who he could manipulate. And obviously, when I was younger, I just thought, what you see is what you get.
And he pretended to be what he knew that you wanted. It wasn't that he showed you who he was at first. You had no idea that the person that you were married to and the father of your children could be capable of doing any of this. You both didn't. They're so good at manipulating you and pretending, just like how they do in society, how people see them in a certain way. They play your dream man. They suck in and you think you're swept off your feet and you fall in love and you think you're living this amazing life, not knowing that there's a double life being led at the same time. That's not like that anybody can prepare for. And it's so, I don't know why it's so hard for people to understand that this is so prevalent, because how many people have had a friend or have dated somebody that they're not with anymore? You look back and you say, what did I see in that person? How did I not see that they weren't a good person? I don't have any more emotional attachment to them. I am disgusted with what they did to me and what they were capable of. We all fall for that. And people live that double life 24 hours a day. It's not just a phase that they go through maybe because they're a teenager. There's some people that perpetually put on this act because they have an end goal that they need to meet, whether it's with a child or a generational pattern that they're carrying down. And that goal, they'll do whatever they need to do to get there, including manipulating somebody who is very loving and caring and accepting and looking for that dream person to sweep them off their feet.
Yep. Well, what we have to know, we have to really understand human behavior, and we have to know how our body works to protect us in ways that actually might hurt us. Okay. So one of the things that our body does when we are victims of abuse is it creates a false narrative. It creates denial. It creates amnesia. And it does this when we're a child and experiencing abuse to protect us. But that denial and amnesia stays on lifelong. Some people, 50 years, don't come to terms with it. Okay. And so, but what happens is people who are the abusers can spot those people a million miles away. Like the drug dealer can walk into a party and know right away who's a drug user, who's like an AA person or a previous user, and he knows how to get to the victims, where somebody who doesn't engage in that wouldn't know that, right? So they spot us a mile away. And we, because we haven't dealt with our own shit, don't even know that we are prey. Don't even understand it because we haven't stopped and considered. Every single person on earth should stop and say, it is human nature when I've experienced trauma to create amnesia from myself of that trauma. So the fact that I don't remember something does not in and of itself mean that it never happened. So every adult should stop and ask themselves, should have meditation where we reflect inward, and we should say, what parts of my behavior are consistent with somebody who's been abused? Where are the landmines in my life? What kind of things trigger me? Are any of these things with that land? And then we should have a conversation and say, hey, inner child, I know that if something, I don't know if something happened, but I know if something did happen to me, that at the time I create a point of amnesia in order to protect myself and denial, and I then love my abuser. So the very people we should each ask ourselves, who are the people that I revere the most in my life? Could that person have abused me and that's why I revere them? It's a weird fucking thing. And we're taught that if we think that way, if we consider it, not if we obsess over it, and not if we're like, but if even just in the consideration of it, that means something wrong about us, and that's wrong. That is what the abuser plants in us so that we never discover them. So the truth of the matter is, Stockholm syndrome is when you identify with your abuser and then you spend the rest of your life idolizing that person and you never remember the abuse. You won't even consider it, okay? So what you should do is you should look at all the people in your life that you idolize, that you think are there to help you, that you know, that you don't even question are your best support systems. And you have to say, could that person have ever abused me? Why or why not? What's my evidence? What's my earliest memory of them? And then you sit down with personal time with yourself and you say, inner child Lizzie, I don't know if I have any secrets that I keep for myself or not, but I do know that if I ended up with an abuser, chances are it's cyclical until I confront my abuse, that I keep putting myself into these same situations until I heal. So, inner child Lizzie, if I was ever abused, I want you to know, number one, I'm strong enough to get through it. Number two, I'm safe and I can still keep myself safe. And number three, I'm not going to be angry with you. I'm not going to flip out and become, right? Because when people are really faced with their trauma, they have two options. One, they heal, or two, they become psychotic. They can have a breakdown from it, okay? So you need to tell your own self, your own inner child, if you are hiding something from me, I'd like to know it now, please. Because what would have helped me to keep it a secret as a child is now hurting me as an adult because I keep walking around in these landmines and I don't even know where it's coming from. And then what you try and do is you focus on a memory as a child. Like we all have these little blips of things that we can remember parts, but we don't remember the significance of it. So in other words, for me in my life, I remembered standing in the doorway of my parents' bedroom. I never remembered why. So I said, hey, inner child Lizzie, I don't know if you're keeping anything secret from me or not, but if you are, I would like to know it. I am safe. I am strong. And the sheer fact that I've made it this far proves to you that I'm safe and I'm not going to have a breakdown. So I would really like to know what trauma I had. What happened when I stood in that doorway at my parents' room? What did I really see? Why do I always have a strong memory of that? And then boom, like a flash of lightning, the memory came back to me. So until we all do that inner work, we can't say for sure whether or not we've had these issues, right? And until we know what our issues of abuse are, we then can't prevent it, because we're just walking blindly, like, into the same doors all the time, because we don't realize that those doors lead to more abuse. Those are the doors that we're used to being in. Those are the doors of comfort. Those are the doors in our mind. Our neurotransmitters are messed up. Like, where love is also sits fear. Where anxiety is sits comfort, right? And so until we get those neurotransmitters and the neural pathways separated and working correctly, we keep drawing the same experiences into our lives. And it all starts with the acknowledgement.
Oh, I understand that. That all makes perfect sense with the memories and things like that. I think, definitely. And, I know a lot of trauma survivors who have dissociated as children, and then they suddenly get a trigger, and then the memories come back when they're a lot older. In SRA, it's quite common that they don't even come back till they're about 30 or something. Some of the memories, they're just so hideous that it's the brain's way of protecting. But for me, it's like, when I look back at some of the ex-boyfriends I had before I married my husband, I should have just stayed with one of them. they were, I don't think any of them would have turned out to be satanic ritual abusers for 1 minute. I should have stayed with my long-term ex-boyfriend. I'm sure I would have had a completely different life.
But you wouldn't have thought that of your husband either, right? Like, because if you did, you wouldn't have went with him.
But you are meant to protect your If they have been with any other mother, they might not have gotten the same fight. You guys were meant to mother your children. If you were with any other mother,
exactly.
Moms that have your strength, and your kids need that.
They do. And I know I'm going to get them back. I know I do. I know I will do. I just absolutely know I'm going to get my boys back.
What would you guys, looking at where you are now, if you could go back in time, because I know that there's still so many parents
every day.
and not necessarily to the beginning of saying, oh, I just wish I would have never met them. What differently, when you came to that point where you knew you had to seek authorities, what would you do different? Because you did what any sensible person would do. You spoke with police, you filed a court case, divorce, whatever it is, you took all those proper channels that most people would automatically do, that we're trained to do. What would you do differently looking back that other parents could learn from, or that you could give advice for them?
What I would do, I mean, from the disclosures, when the boys disclosed, because there were signs, but I missed them. So educating about signs of abuse, that is what people should do, and put surveillance in place, hidden cameras if your child is showing these signs. So I'll just say that. But once a child's disclosed, of course you can't send them back to them. If they're disclosing horrific abuse, you're not going to set up a secret camera to see if it goes on. Of course you're not going to do that. That's if you're seeing signs and you're concerned, and you can put a hidden camera in a room. But after they disclosed, no, I wouldn't have gone to the police straight away. I would have employed a private detective to do some surveillance on him, and some kind of, I don't know. That's what I would have done to obtain more evidence, and then go to the police further down the line. I wouldn't have gone to family court. I would have got out of the country, and I would have gone to Northern Cyprus, non-extradition country. They can't extradite you back, and that's before you go to court, so they can't court, you're not breaking any court orders at that point. But then again, you can't guarantee safety with that. You can't guarantee it 100%. But yeah, surveillance maybe. I wouldn't recommend anyone to break the law, because it'll just come back to you. Try and sort things out yourself. And then again, if you try and confront the abuser with some other people, again, they call the police on them. It's like it's set up to protect the abuser. So I would suggest private detective, probably, if it gets to that point. Do not step foot in a family court. That's what I'd say. If your children disclose sexual abuse, or any other forms of abuse similar, I would just say, get away, just protect you and your family, get away to a country that's not going to extradite you back. That's all I can say.
Yeah, for me, I think, again, one of the things that I think you're doing to really help with this issue, Emma, and Sam and I are trying to get across, is this idea of educating people so that they don't, like those weeks that I spent believing in Brian's goodness, I don't regret believing in his goodness. I never regret believing in anybody's goodness. But what I regret is that I didn't take active steps to protect my children because I didn't see his evil for what it was, right? So where I called the police and I was like, look, I have contracts where this man is trying to kidnap me and have me falsely committed to a mental institution while he's texting me and gaslighting me and saying, Lizzie, I would never do that. And you should have it from me in writing. So it gives you comfort. Now, don't you think you're paranoid for thinking that? Why would you think that? And I was like, no, motherfucker, I'm not paranoid. I've got your iPad. I've got the contracts. You put the fucking payment for these people on my credit card. I've got your email with them. I've got you sending them a list of places using my name. But at that point, I went to the police and they didn't do anything. And I even went to the DA's office and they didn't do anything. But that's the point where I had this moment in my mind where I was like, well, maybe I'm overreacting. The police would help me. Like if the police would really help me if this was dangerous. They're on top of it. They're gonna help me. Like it's that moment where the indoctrinated beliefs created this oppositional control for Brian. You understand? He was allowed, because they set up these delusions of justice, and I subscribed to those indoctrinated beliefs and those delusions of justice. I then wasted precious times. So that then allowed him to go to the court and get an order of protection against me instead of me having gone to the court, because the police weren't helping me. And they were like, no, you don't really need an order of protection. You're fine. You're okay. And then the DA was like, no, none of that's unlawful. It's fine. And I was like, Mr. Green, I know it's unlawful because my husband went to Yale Law School and he put in writing that if he was doing it, it would be unlawful. So I know it's unlawful. But still then, I didn't trust my instinct. I suppressed my instinct to do whatever I could to protect my children. And I got concerned about, well, I don't want people to think I'm overreacting. I don't want people to think I'm crazy. I don't want people, no. Okay, I'm strong. I'm sure Brian's gonna act accordingly. I'll just document everything and I'll be safe. So if I could go back in time, I probably would have pursued the order of protection against him with the evidence more clearly. I don't know if that would have helped. Let's be clear. I don't know if it would have helped because we know that the very court that I would have had to go to get the order of protection is the one that actually helped him traffic the children. So I don't know that it would have helped, but if nothing else, I feel like when I say, where did I fail to protect my kids? It was that I subscribed too easily. I was too easily manipulated by the cops, by the DA, and by DSS. And I wish that I understood what their role was so that I acted differently. I did originally have one lawyer in the very beginning who was like, don't trust DSS, don't trust the cops. They're gonna try and take your kids away and this is dangerous and let me help you. And I literally said to that man, I was like, sir, I believe in humanity. They're not going to try and take my kids away. They're there to help me. So I don't want to work with you because I feel like we'll be fighting each other about what has to happen. And then like 3 weeks later, I called him up and I was like, oh my God, you were right about everything. Please help me, please help me, please help me. But he's like, I can't now. You're too far into it. You're on this is a runaway train with what they're going to do to you now. That your action had to come in the earlier points. So I regret not listening to him. you know, and I don't regret believing in my husband's goodness, but I regret that I put more of the eggs in that basket than took all legal remedies to try and help my children, you know, to protect them. So, I mean, but hindsight's 2020. All we can do now is talk about our experience and hopefully offer it up to other people so that they can make different decisions. And then, you know, maybe by elevating everybody's IQ on these issues and making our beliefs more realistic and less indoctrinated, we then can prevent this for other people.
Absolutely.
How do we break through all of this? How do we end up pushing this needle collectively? Because as you guys said, this has to come from the people. What do we need to do? What can we do? Can a class action lawsuit be filed? What are the different options that we
Yes.
need to do? Because it's so hard to get people together for one big cause unless it's the media bringing us into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
How do we
Cameras in court. Cameras in court.
Right.
Sam is absolutely right. Cameras in court and get rid of judicial immunity. If there is accountability, people won't act this way because remember, all these people want their fake reputations.
Absolutely.
So if we get rid of their fake reputations, if we say, nope, this is what that guy did, and anybody can see for themselves, just go watch the video of that court hearing, this will end. And these things should exist anyways.
How do we get rid of that? Because you said it's been presented thousands of times to get rid of this and it still hasn't gone away. What needs to happen? How do we end up getting this? Do people have to partition for it? Does it have to come from a petition that millions of people sign and we send in? Or how do we end up breaking through that when it's historically hasn't moved?
Right. Well, cameras in court are being pushed in the US. What's happening in the UK, Sam?
Well, I was just going to say, actually, just kind of going off a bit there, I would encourage I would make a plea for some whistleblowers to come forward, like the whistleblower in Missouri.
Yeah.
There's loads of people who are decent people who are not liking what they see in court and what's happening. And they're too scared to do anything, or maybe.
Because they're the minority. They're the minority. And it's time to let them know that they will be supported and they will be believed. It's time to let them know that we will stand behind them when they come out. And just like all tragedies, once one person stands up and starts telling the story, and we bring this all to fruition, those people will be heralded as heroes. But you're right, encourage them to come forward, Sam. You're absolutely right.
And they might even be able to keep their identity safe whilst at the same time getting rid of the judges, because the judges have been shown to be exactly what they are, which is just after money and child trafficking. So like the leak of the Zoom call, we don't know who that person is. They never identified. They sent the recording to Mike Volpe. So people can even do it without even, risking their own. Maybe there'd be some risk, but yeah, I just encourage those people to come forward in whatever capacity you are, whether it's a personal capacity or at a court worker or a barrister, somebody just come forward, just do the right thing, because this is costing children their lives. Look at Thomas Valver. He was given to the paedophile father, not just paedophile father, but the satanic ritual abuse father, the New York Police Department police officer. The mother fought tirelessly. The court ignored her, gave him full custody of the 3 boys. And now one of them is dead. And he even looks like one of my youngest boy. We can't have any more children dying. There's been that a girl a few years ago who committed suicide, a 14-year-old girl, because her stepfather, who had raped her sister, now wanted contact, and the Guardian had lied and was encouraging contact. She got herself so upset, she said, I'm going to kill myself. The day after, she hung herself. And there's so many other children dying in this country, in your country, all over the world, and it just needs to stop. People need to just stop ignoring it and think it's not going to happen to my children. Just care about all children. And it's the people who can really do something are the ones inside the system, and those who know what's going on. Just come forward, please.
I think just knowing that every story is important. And this is, when my story started out, I had like, 100 followers. I mean, I didn't even mention, but I know you guys know, but my Instagram account with thousands and thousands of followers got taken down, right? It's soon after there was a suspicious fire in my home in the middle of the night. Like, I mean, it's just ridiculous what I've had to go through for speaking out about this. But the thing is, the more people that speak out, then the more, the quicker we get through all this. And what I've told myself every time is it doesn't matter if I have one like or one person viewing it. You have to trust that just the sheer fact of speaking the truth and telling people your story will create a ripple effect in the world.
Yeah.
And so if you only have one person listen to your story, just know that that's the one person that needed to hear it in the universe. Just know that that's going to have an impact. Okay. So get rid of all of our indoctrinated beliefs that we are taught to value, people that get that little blue symbol behind their name, or people that have the thousands of likes. Get rid of them.
Yeah.
And know the value is in the truth. Absolutely. Know the value is in the integrity, and lead with that and speak with that. And I don't care how small, whether you're a court clerk that noticed that they punched the wrong date on purpose on forms, or if you watched a judge actually take money and talk about, giving children to a pedophile, wherever you are on that spectrum, when you contribute to goodness, that drop in the bucket adds up to waves of change. And if we each just do our part, the sooner we each do our part, the sooner we will bring all this to fruition and move on to a better humanity. But it doesn't start with turning a blind eye or just thinking that, everybody else is doing their story, or Sam and Liz are talking about it. If in your area, if you're not a victim, and I hope you're not, of litigation abuse or judicial abuse, please know that in your area, somebody else is. So research court corruption in your area. And what you can do is you can be what's called a court watcher, which throughout most of the world, the courts are being held virtually. So you can be in the comfort of your own home and you log on via Zoom, you'll get a link, and then you can document what's going on. When you hear about people advocating to get rid of judicial immunity or bring cameras in court, put your support behind it. Yes, we need to get these, change.org, which is owned by, somebody said Gates now, I don't know if he bought it, but George Soros originally owned it. But when we get these petitions going, yes, obviously supporting these petitions as they come to fruition, but there are ways of the mediums that we use to distribute those petitions of them suppressing the really good ones, right? So just stay informed. That idea of acting locally and never doubting that whenever you're doing the right thing to take the right initiative, that's actually having a massive measurable difference in the world. When we all act with that level of integrity, then this is going to end. But none of us are hopeless or helpless, and none of us are bystanders.
And it's so powerful watching survivors, whether on your end where you were unknowingly a victim of something and now you're trying to help children or whoever it is that's currently being victimized. You guys are survivors too. And I love seeing this movement of somebody being brave enough, not knowing anybody else is going through this in the world, just like you two, and saying, I've never dealt with this. I've never heard of anybody dealing with this, but I'm going to talk about it. And now look, somebody in the UK is talking all the time to somebody that lives in New York, right? And you guys are now sharing each other's audiences. Sam's audience is now following Lizzie. Lizzie's is now getting to know Sam. And it's becoming this global movement where we're connecting those dots for people. So I know everybody's different and there are gag orders and there is risks involved with speaking up. But I also see the power in that whenever you get brave enough to say, you know what, they're trying to basically make me submissive so I stay silent, but I'm more powerful when I actually fight that. And like you said, Sam, don't do anything illegal. That's something that I think people, it goes through their mind where they're like, if that was happening to me, I'd kill that person.
Yeah, it's easy to say, but you can't do it, can you? Of course not. How's that going to
Fail, and now you're no help to your kids, right? And you just completely obliterated any integrity that people could see in you, right? Whenever you commit crimes, you make yourself a criminal. So that's not an option, right? Like you can't partake, you can't be what you're going against. You have to do it with light and love and in a really hard way, even though every part of you probably wants to fight fist and nail to get your kids back. But I think there's so much power too in just speaking your story and owning it and saying, I'm going to do what I can with this. I understand, like you, Sam, I can't say the names of some of these people involved, but that doesn't mean that it changes the facts of my story. And I can at least start with that and start talking about it. And you realize how many people actually go through this, right? You start speaking up and you get somebody else that timidly raises their hand and says, oh my gosh, me too. Oh my gosh, me too. And it becomes this Me Too movement, right? And I hate what that stands for and how that was propagated, but there really is these moments where we feel so alone in our battles, and you become so much more powerful when you actually speak the truth and you collude with other people on the side of good against the bad, and you combat it together and you stand together. And I'm so freaking proud of you two for doing that. Because like I said, just me bringing you guys on here and sharing your posts and supporting you, I get hate from people who are against what you are saying, right? And the messages that we're trying to get out. And so I can't fathom what you two go through and what other survivors and of the same judicial abuse that you're going through, and then survivors that have actually escaped the system go through with that resistance. So just thank you both so much. You're creating such a movement just yourselves. Thousands and thousands of people are now awake when they weren't before. You're waking people up, and you're collaborating with other people who are also waking people up. And I agree with you, like this movement, it's not stopping. It's not stopping.
No, this is wave convergence at this point. We are actually joining, and we're becoming louder and louder and louder. And one other indoctrinated thought that I want you to kind of shatter is that one of the things that abusers teach us throughout our life is that it's embarrassing for the kids. If you're talking about this, you must not be a good parent because you're embarrassing your kids. How awful. Not talking about it only helps the abuser, only and always. And the idea that you hear a child come out and be brave enough to talk about their abuse, nobody looks at that child and says, shame on that child. That's embarrassing. Yeah. No, what actually happens is when the child confronts it, when they're talking about it, when they're brave enough, we all applaud that child and we put them on a pedestal, and we can recognize that that child had no active participation in the sexual abuse of them. Okay, so it's not embarrassing for them to talk about that somebody overpowered them and did awful things. It's empowering. It's amazing, and we applaud them. So the idea, but that's a big one, that a lot of, you want to say well-intentioned people, but you can't know somebody else's intention. They hide behind that. Oh, I'm just trying to protect the child. So well, you should keep this quiet. No, I can't tell you your intentions, but I can tell you that not talking about it only helps the abuser, only and always. And accusing children who come out and talk about it, or the parents who come out and talk about it as being unfit for doing so, is fucking stupid and bullshit. And we're not going to subscribe to that indoctrinated belief anymore. So,
and I want to say thank you for you two as well, both for speaking out. Lizzie, just for, someone tagged me into one of your posts and I thought, yes, someone else is speaking out.
Exactly.
And then that you're shining a light and that you actually want to help, you're not just doing some YouTube channel or podcast that's, that could get you, massive subscribers like some people do just to get, lifestyle channels and all the rest of it, makeup, interior, whatever it is.
Right.
So,
you're really tackling like you're taking the hard road. And I want to say, like, this idea, I want people to flip the switch because it's uncomfortable. Like, oh no, I'm getting these uncomfortable messages from people. Flip the switch on that. Flip the switch. Like, isn't that brilliant? Now you know who they are. Isn't that brilliant? They come out at you so that you can stop them. Like, I actually, like, when the more they come out, I'm like, great. If my role in this world is to help end pedophilia and call attention to it, then I shouldn't cry every single time one of them reveals themselves to me. And like, if anything, I should be like, great, another one bites the dust. Like, check. So
let me screenshot my block list. That way you can
yes,
see all the criminals hiding online, right? That's it.
yes, exactly. So thank you, Emma, for what you do. And Sam, I'm so honored to be in your company, not for the reasons that we're with each other, but to know that I have such a warrior taking on these fight in you two women is very comforting to me. So thank you both.
Thank you both. God bless you both.
God bless both of you. Do you guys have anything else to say to either survivors or people that are dealing with something similar to you before we log off of here today?
Just say, speak out. You know, I understand it's difficult if you've got contact with your children, but just weigh up, you know, whether it's more dangerous to stay silent or more, you know, just it can't advise with different cases, but I think our voices, this movement needs to get bigger, and we just to create that change.
Yeah. And I would say, just remember, there is nothing stronger than light and love. And these people perpetuating these crimes, they need the secrecy, they need the deception, they need the fear, and they need the anxiety. Okay. And we are asking people to turn to strength, to turn to integrity, to turn to protection, and to turn to light and love. And that's an easy choice. When you're confronted with both, right? Eventually people will gravitate towards this. So stand in your strength, stand in your integrity, stand in your truth, and you will find an inner fortitude that you might not have ever realized was there before. But it grounds you and it sustains you when you start living openly and articulating the truth. And then you'll find that you can really bring about the best change for yourself. So I know it might be a hard couple first steps to get rid of those indoctrinated thoughts and to just kind of like comply with the abuse so that they leave you alone. But I think once you take the right steps into being open and honest, transparent, forthright, and forthcoming, that you'll find an inner strength and you'll realize that our path to a better humanity is sooner than we think.
And you're right. We're fighting. We have to be the opposite of what we're fighting, right? And we have to
Yes.
show the opposite always, as hard as it is, right? They're taking the easy route by choosing to
Right.
react with abuse. We're doing a lot harder by fighting this
Yeah.
with. And for both of you, do you have anything immediate that for people saying, how do I support them right now? What can people do right now to help drive and push the needle to where you need it to be? Is it
Well, for me, it's
what is it?
just to you know, share our posts, share our stories, talk to people about what's happening. You know, just tell everyone you know. I want people to buy my book. It's free to, if you work with children, it's free. I've made it really, really cheap as I can do it. So if it's an ebook in the States, it's just $1. So I'm not doing it for money. I just want to warn people, you know, that this could happen, and it's written in the way of like a novel style, but it's basically my story. And then at the back of the book, there's all signs, you know, the signs of child sex abuse, there's signs of satanic ritual abuse. There's a bit about parental alienation syndrome that is falsely being used throughout the courts. As happened with us, I suppose, with you in a way as well, Lizzie. It's that turning against a protective parent, but it's packed full with information like that. So it's good. I just want to educate. I want people to be educated about the signs to look out for that your child is being abused, because it's not anywhere. They don't want us to know the system. They don't want us to know the signs to look out for. It's never talked about. I didn't have a clue what was going on. I was looking in all directions for different therapies instead of thinking, couldn't all these be linked to one cause, and that man is right in front of us. So, and it's also full of practical things. If you do, should you do see any of these signs, what you can do, like I said about the surveillance, catching it on camera, because it feels like the only way of getting justice sometimes is if you catch it on camera, you know, the abuse. So that's what I'd encourage. And as I say, I encourage whistleblowers. I encourage people to come out of the comfort zones and just do something good, because life is short. And I think you just have to do, you know, you have to help people, have to help those less fortunate, you know, the children, the vulnerable. And And yeah, just speak out. That's what my message is.
Yeah, and I would say, remember, these people are cowards.
Yes.
We have a deep inner fear, like a deep, deep, deep inner fear from them, because that fear comes from childhood. Okay. But remember, these people prey on children. They are cowards. And when you confront them, they fucking run and hide. They are terrified of people who stand up and confront them. So I would first and foremost invite you to consider that and change your mentality about this, in terms of being afraid of pedophiles to being like, oh my God, these are the parasites of the world and they're disgusting and I can squash them like that. So number one, that. Number two, sharing our stories, educating yourself, doing your research on it, looking at the evidence, and then sharing it, because these people believe erroneously that if they delete our stories, either on our Instagram account, that all their problems go away. Or if they harm me or put me away, that means none of this ever existed. So I need to know that the truth prevails, which I know it does, but help make that happen more easily by sharing these stories. Then educate yourself about things that are in your area. One of the things I talked about, when you get taken by the police, they take away your phone. So you're allowed a phone call, but they're like, oh, you don't have a number to call? You don't remember the phone numbers? Sorry. We offered you a chance to call somebody, but you didn't know the number. So make a plan. Understand that these kidnappings during these times of COVID are happening worldwide. We are in a war right now. We are in a spiritual war. And these people have sold their soul to the devil in order to get a little money or a lot of money and a little power or a lot of power. And this is the devil's work that's being done. So in order to defend yourself, have a plan, have an education, understand what your rights are, know the mental health hygiene laws in your area, because those are ways that they're coming to try and take control over you. They're trying to assert that they can take you into custody because they're concerned about you. And you have to be able to clearly articulate, I'm of sound mind and body, I'm fully competent, I'm not suicidal or homicidal in any way. I know those are the laws in the United States and the ways that they can take control of you. Find out in your area. And then lastly, or two things, research judicial abuse. I'm sure there are programs in your area. Get in touch with those programs. Offer to be a court watcher. Offer, say, is there somebody that's going through something right now? Do they need my help? How can I help? Can I even go with them to court one day? Something like that makes a big difference. And buy Sam's book. Buy Sam's book and get the word out. Keep spreading the word. And let's just end this stupidity, because these people only exist because we think of them as good and upstanding citizens. And when we become aware of the problem and we call them out for what they are, this problem ends.
Everybody listening, please support them. I'm going to link, and if you guys want to learn more about their stories, I have interviewed both of them one-on-one, and you can go more in depth and learn. Sam's book chronicles her story even more in depth than what we went into, and she turned it into this fictional story to preserve the names and the integrity of the story so you can hear it, but to where there's not so much personal information disclosed as far as names. And this story is absolutely incredible. It gives so much information from her perspective of what she went through, so you can relate and understand the whole story, as well as how she said, educate yourself. We're not taught this. So indulge in this information that they're giving you for free. This is stuff that you're going to have a very hard time searching because it's been deleted everywhere. It's been deleted out of almost everywhere, and people that talk about it get deleted right away. So please share this podcast, follow them.
Emma,
yes.
One last thing I forgot. Do your own inner work on your soul to oust your demons. This is a spiritual war, and we all need to be accountable for the demons that exist within us and oust them. Do that inner work, and remember, if you have moments of amnesia in your life, that those are actual shadow work. That's shadow work that you need to do, that there's hidden memories there that you're keeping from yourself, okay? And when you do that work and when you oust your demons, only when you do that can you stop perpetuating the cycles of abuse or the landmines that you might be subjected to in your own life.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And please connect with these ladies. Please do everything you can to get their stories out. Support, support, support. like I said, and like Lizzie said, she just got deleted from Instagram. So the most that we can do to help support them is get all their information out. So there is nowhere that they can be censored. We need their information everywhere. So knocking them out of one platform doesn't knock them out of everywhere. Support their stories, subscribe to this podcast, go support the other survivors that we have had on this show. And ladies, just thank you so much for being here, for your courage, for showing up with a smile every day. You give me so much hope and inspiration, and I've learned so much from both of you. And I know everybody listening can say the same. So just thank you so much for being able to be here today. And I'm praying for you guys just as much as you guys are praying for each other and praying for everybody else. We're going to get your babies back.
Yeah, we are. Thank you. And Sam, so I have it, my backup on Instagram is Lizzie Harding One Backup. Facebook is Elizabeth Harding Weinstein. Sam, what's your stuff?
Instagram is Sam_Antha Baldwin. Facebook, I've got a Facebook page, Samantha Baldwin Exposing Family Court. And then I've got my own personal Facebook with my name, easy to find. What else? YouTube channel. Again, just type in my name. It's the first one that comes up on YouTube. I think that's it. And a book is on Amazon. Books on Amazon. Everything's going to be okay on Amazon. Yeah. And it's on my website.
All of this below for you guys, so that way it's really easy to find. So if there's anything else that you guys didn't mention, just send it to me. And everybody listening, go into the show notes and I'm going to list everything that they said. That way it's really easy for you guys to connect with these amazing women.
Thanks so much for having us on, Emma.
Thank you, warriors. Thank you, warriors.
We're fighting with you, and everybody, please get involved if you're listening. So until next time, you guys, thank you, ladies, for being here, and tune in next time for the imagination. Bye, you guys.
Love you.
Love you.